Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Import the third world, become the third world. It's as simple as that. 7 Somali defendants accused as part of a broader $250 million COVID charity scam robbing poor American kids of food were rearrested when a woman with an accent and wearing a long black dress, who's likely Somali herself, tried to bribe one of the jurors on the case with a bag containing $120,000 in cash. Somehow this woman knew the 23-year-old's real name and address, and she handed the bribe over to the woman's father-in-law since the juror wasn't home at the time, with the promise that there would be more to come if the juror voted not guilty the following day. Thankfully, the juror called the cops, and so she was removed from the case. The rest of the jury was sequestered, and the 7 defendants, part of a larger ring of 70 defendants, were rearrested, as I mentioned earlier. They also had their phones confiscated and were no longer allowed to leave the courtroom during trial, even during breaks. The basic allegation made against them is that they were scamming the federal child nutrition program through their fake Feeding Our Future charity in Minnesota. The federal nutrition program was supposed to pay back charities for feeding poor American kids during COVID. The scammers are accused of faking children's names and meal prep in order to receive about $250 million to fund their luxury lifestyles. Every so often, they would provide a few meals here and there just to keep up appearances. And while we talk about a lack of assimilation with new arrivals who are expressly told by our ruling left-wing elites that America is evil, so don't assimilate, and actually owes them something, well, at least some of these defendants did assimilate with the left on one thing. I mean, back before they got caught and arrested, the Minnesota Department of Education tried to stop facilitating payments because they got suspicious about the millions of invoices that were supposedly being provided to them. And so the alleged scammers actually filed a bogus lawsuit against them over accusations of discrimination. They literally tried to accuse government officials of discriminating against them because they're mostly Somali immigrants. Can you believe the nerve that takes? Talk about third world corruption tactics. And then over in Canada, the situation may be more dire as many Indian foreign nationals brought over through scam universities for white-collar tech jobs and finance jobs have been accused of helping themselves to local charities set up for those in need, not for those looking for free food, despite being able to afford it on their own. And like America, but even worse than our crisis here, this massive immigration push is a major factor when it comes to home or rent prices skyrocketing and the availability of housing diminishing. The situation's gotten so bad that some lefties in Canada, like this guy, are openly talking about millions of spare bedrooms, which could put a dent in the housing crisis. But what do they mean by spare bedrooms? They mean sniffing around to see what families have an empty guest bedroom, and then trying to saddle those families with new guests, in the same way some Democrats here in the States have considered the possibility of housing migrants in the homes of American citizens. Since this doesn't look too good for Biden before November, he now finally signed an executive order about the border after telling us for months and years that such actions were outside of his powers. And now that he's finally doing something, it's even worse than if he had done nothing at all. Because while pretending to address the crisis, all he's doing is shutting down asylum claims once 2,500 illegals are apprehended in a day between official ports of entry. As some officials have pointed out, all the cartels have to do is to direct their traffic team and cargo to official ports of entry. It's not like anything will happen to them anyway, and look, loophole to the shutdown found. Other loopholes include expansions to asylum in which migrants only have to express nonverbal body language, whatever that means, that indicates they're afraid to return to their home countries, and that protects them from any deportation measures.